afternoon, everybody. I cracked on that one. And welcome to the Tyler Werner Show right here on Kutztown Radio. It is finals week here on Kutztown University campus. So, this week, some students, some of the KUR personnel has finished up their shows for the spring semester, and won't be back for until the fall perhaps. And but as far as the Tyler Werner Show goes, here I am. I don't have a final right now, so obviously that's why I'm here, and more than happy to do the Talk Philadelphia Sports right here on the Tyler Werner Show today. And speaking of the summer, as far as regarding this show goes, a little update. The Tyler Werner Show will continue at noon throughout most of the weeks during the summer. Actually, the way the summer semesters go, there's like a summer 1, summer 2 semester, and summer 1 begins the week after Memorial Day weekend. So I'm gonna have a couple weeks off actually, so the show, this will be the last show for a few more weeks. Talking Philadelphia sports, NFL draft week. We'll see what the Eagles do in the NFL draft, see how things shape up, and then I guess let whatever happens settle for a few weeks in the mind, what they do, and a few weeks from now we'll talk about what is definitely shaping up to be a very interesting NFL draft. And as I said earlier, then the show late week after Memorial Day weekend will continue on pretty much a weekly basis throughout the rest of the summer. I believe there might be a week here and there. There might be a vacation I take. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how the things go. But for now, that's where we're at. So obviously, it's a big show today, previewing the NFL draft. What goes on ahead of the Eagles. As they sit at pick number 22. Obviously very different situation than last year where they had pick number 4 in the draft. Obviously we're going to go through some mock drafts of experts, see what the general consensus is, perhaps of ultimately what the Eagles might do and ultimately what's going to happen in front of them. Of course, last week's show, we're going through the NFL schedule and picking games and previewing what was the Flyers down 3-2 in the to the New York Rangers. Obviously that's the Flyers season is over, so we'll probably talk a little bit about the Flyers today. What they, but then again, we kind of have all summer to really think about what they need to do to maybe get to that next level, because obviously I think it showed they don't have enough to be a perennial cup contender, obviously. Getting knocked out in the first round, taking it to a game 7, but nevertheless getting knocked out in the first round of the NHL playoffs. Obviously maybe touch on that a little bit, and as the NHL playoffs continue, talk about what's going on in the rest of the NHL playoffs, as well as the NBA playoffs, which, many would agree, had one of the most interesting first rounds in the history of the NBA playoffs.
I agree.
A lot of the majority of the series going to game 7s, and definitely some great basketball that we've seen, and obviously the second round gets underway. The NBA playoffs now, and of course last week I did not really get to touch on the Sterling getting banned for life issue with the whole racial the racist comments on an audio recording. I agree with what the new Adam Silver very new NBA commissioner did, banning Sterling for life. He fined him, $2.5 million, which to to Sterling is obvious. That's like pocket change. But he came on last week shortly after the Tyler Werner show. Didn't really get to break the news, but he essentially said, Rod Sterling is banned for life. And I mean, they did the right thing, but I mean, obviously, it's going to be, interesting to see how all the legal stuff plays with the vague, wordings and of bylaws and this and that. But nevertheless, I mean, I think, they're the new NBA commissioner. They have the right idea, obviously, in banning Adam Silver, and not banning Adam Silver, banning Sterling, and it's definitely made it for an interesting, campaign for the LA Clippers now in the NBA playoffs. So they're up 1-0 in their second round series, and so I mean it's definitely an interesting storyline, and I'm looking at TV screens and seeing like are the LA Clippers like the new America's team and this and that, and, so it's definitely throws an interesting twist in the NBA playoffs right now, and for the LA Clippers organization. So that's that. Didn't really get a chance to touch on that last week, but here we are. It's one of those housekeeping things, as they call it, or whatever. So yeah, we got that, and then we have the Phillies, playing a little less baseball than normal this past week. I mean, they had a postponed game against the Mets last Wednesday. Obviously, it was a pretty rainy, typical spring week last week with a lot of rain, and but the Phillies had last Tuesday night. They had a struggle against the New York Mets, and they won 2 out of 3 against a decent Washington Nationals team. So that's not, obviously it's not bad. Yesterday they dropped 3-0 to the Toronto Blue Jays, who they're now in a 4-game stint with. I mean, we were talking a couple weeks ago, guys like Jonathan Papelbon, getting criticized for their velocity. But, actually, in recent games, Jonathan Papelbon has actually been performing pretty well and not allowing any runs. And
felt good.
Yeah, I mean, so, he stepped up a little bit. And I guess the velocity has not been too much of an issue for him. But, nevertheless, I mean, again, it's NFL draft week. And obviously we're going to go through some mock drafts today. I think, obviously with the void of Deshaun Jackson, there's definitely been a lot of mock drafts out there predicting that the Eagles at 22, pick number 22, are going to get a wide receiver. And there's also been ideas out there that perhaps they're going to trade up maybe a few picks to really get the guy they want. There's people that are a little critical of if the Eagles would do something like that, because the Eagles already, they have less picks than normal. They have 6 draft picks this year. A lot of people are concerned that they should have more draft picks, and if they gave up like a second round draft pick, for instance, and they to move up a few spots to get a guy they really want, they'd be shortchanging themselves a little bit. And the way I look at it, it's not, if they can trade up a few spots to get somebody that they really want, that they've evaluated and strongly believe will be a great fit for their team, or know that will be a great fit for their team, I can't totally blame them if a few spots later perhaps that player won't be there for them to choose, and then they're not really in a position to draft a guy that they really evaluated as being a big benefit for their team. I don't necessarily believe that it's quantity that'll for this, as far as the number of picks. I mean, certainly it helps to have a big number of draft picks, obviously, to have more chances at getting, hitting on guys that'll, be successful for your team. But, it's definitely an evaluation process. And, at the end of the day, we didn't, I mean, we don't really evaluate the talent out there that, like, Chip Kelly and the Eagles organization are evaluating them. And, I mean, it's, it kind of goes to the whole idea that, in Chip Kelly we trust. And, I mean, again, we have to see more, see how it plays out, obviously. I mean, we'll have a bigger right to criticize what the organization does if, next season they come out flat and underachieve. And, obviously last week on the show, we talked about, going through the schedule and how they would finish. And so, obviously that's, that topic is up for debate today as well. I mean, you can call in at 610-683-4859 to get on the line, or you can also go to the Facebook page, which, that definitely listeners have taken advantage of. Facebook.com/Tyler Werner Show. Simple enough. And post on the discussion thread. And, that's, the predictions for the Eagles schedule, the 2014, how you think they'll finish. If you listened last week or, you went on the podcast or whatever, I had them at a 10-6, which, obviously the same record as last year. And I think, a lot of realists and, analysts would have them finishing around there. Others, some people have them, dropping down to 9-7 or even 8-8. Just because they think the schedule is that difficult, or, they think that the Redskins are that much better because they have Deshaun Jackson now, and they think RG3 is gonna really come into his own. I don't know, but 10-6 is what I came up with, and I think it was a pretty realistic, assumption of how the Eagles' season is going to turn out. And, obviously, again, against what is going to be a tougher schedule this season, to some degree, that's good enough for me. I mean, if they got to play the Seattle Seahawks, obviously, anytime you have to play the defending Super Bowl champions that destroyed the Denver Broncos, that's tough. And you got to play the 49ers on the road. You have to play the Arizona Cardinals on the road, 3,000 miles away. Obviously you got to go up to Lambeau Field and play the Packers. You got to travel to Indianapolis and play the Colts, Andrew Luck. So, there's definitely tough games on this schedule, and maybe a little more so than last year. But, at the end of the day, I think 10-6 is completely fair, and I think they have a hand on the division pretty well as far as, playing the Dallas Cowboys and the Giants goes. I have them splitting with the Washington Redskins. I think Washington will be in the mix, perhaps to, maybe be in the wild card race, but I don't think they'll get a wild card spot. Whether or not they add a wild card team and make it 3 in each conference, I don't see them, at least being but I see them contending, but I don't see them ultimately being in the playoffs. And, the Giants and the Cowboys, I have, 6 wins or, somewhere around that mix. And, ultimately I think the Eagles can beat, both of those teams twice in the season. I think both of those teams are a bit of a mess. And, again, this Eagles team, see who they mix in there after the NFL draft. But, again, it's a young team. One of the youngest in the NFL. The defense, we'll see if they draft a corner or a solid pass rusher, or a safety. They got Malcolm Jenkins, obviously, in the safety position. I guess they think he's starting material for him. I don't know. But again, it's young defense that, I think is naturally going to progress. little by little in a way. And, we kind of saw that a little bit last year. We saw some evidence of progression, I guess you could say. And, I think that natural progression will continue a little bit to some degree. And, again, I mean, maybe they get a good piece in the draft. I'm not just talking about the first round or second round. I mean, you never know. I mean, who was it? I mean, Richard Sherman. Wasn't he a 6th or 7th round pick? And I don't know exactly, but my point is that you never know who they're going to get, even in the later draft rounds, that can really help this team out and perhaps help the defense out specifically. And now obviously with the defense needing help, as the saying has gone the past few months, ever since the Eagles offseason even began, and with the void of Deshaun Jackson now, to some degree, I guess, the Eagles needing some wide receiver help. We throw the question out, or I throw the question out to the listeners listening today here in NFL Draft Week. Just a couple days from the first round of the draft, what do you want to see the Eagles go for? Or is there a specific guy? Is there a specific wide receiver that you want to see the Eagles go with? Would you mind them, say giving up a second round pick to go and get a certain guy, sacrificing the quantity of picks, but perhaps for better quality? Or, are you one of those people that think, I think the Eagles really need help on this defense, and I think they can do without picking a wide receiver, at least in the first round. I mean, again, this draft this year is obviously very rich in wide receivers. And, we'll go through the many wide receivers on the mock draft boards coming up in the next segment. I mean, do you think they should go wide receiver first pick, or their first round pick, or do you want to see them focus on defense for the first pick? Do you think that's more important? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care. I guess I could not care either way how they go, as long as they fill a position of need. In this draft, fill positions of need, and can be better off with who they pick. I'm not. That's fine with me. If they draft one of these good wide receivers in the first round, and then their next pick, they get a good pass rusher, they get, a good cornerback, a good safety that that has potential to be an upgrade over what they have. I'm totally fine with that. So we'll dress what's floating around out there as the possible draft picks. Coming up in the next segment, as we now have to hit our first break. 610-683-4859 is the number to get in. And, of course, we have the Facebook page, as always, Tyler Werner, Facebook.com/Tyler Werner Show. And the discussion thread's right there. Let me know what you think, and we'll talk about it right here on the Tyler Werner Show, which is right here on Kutztown Radio.
It's Telescopic Topics, a look into the world above us.
Hi, my name is John DeShields. July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong made history as the first man on the moon. Conspiracy theorists believe this was staged by NASA members and other government officials. During this time, Russia and America were in competition with putting the first man on the moon, dubbed the Race to Space. Unfortunately, a theory points to Russia as the source of the rumor to try to discredit America for this great accomplishment. However, conspiracy theorists believe that NASA and others knew and deceived the public into believing the mission was a success by manufacturing, destroying, and tampering with evidence, including photos, rock samples, and even important witnesses. In fact, the Apollo 11 mission was a success with valid proof that it was actually not a hoax at all. Scrutiny arisen when the photographs of the landing were released and no stars were visible in them. But the landing actually took place during the lunar mornings, where the sun is shining so bright that the stars are not bright enough to be seen in the photographs. The fact that the footprints of the astronauts in the fine lunar dust, with no atmosphere or strong gravity, were so well preserved was a sign of some sort of tampering to the theories. In fact, the lack of the wind on the moon means those steps in the dry lunar dust aren't blown away in the way a step in a similar substance on the Earth would be. A Russian cosmonaut claimed that the astronauts couldn't survive this trip due to exposure of radiation from the Van Allen radiation belt. With the short time to pass through the belt combined with the special protection means any exposure to radiation would be too low to be harmful. Theorists claim rocks brought back from the moon are identical to rocks that were found on trips to Antarctica. However, rocks from the moon have been discovered on the Earth before. The difference is the ones that have been found have all been flamed and oxidized by the Earth's atmosphere. The list of facts to debunk conspiracy theories could continue, but to discard this historic moment of America for some sort of personal satisfaction is pathetic. Okay, until next time, this is John DeShill signing out.
Telescopic Topics, a look into the world above us. Stay tuned to KUR for more telescopic topics throughout the summer. And for more information, or to hear the segment again, click on the Telescopic Topics icon on the KUR website at www.kutztown.edu/KUR. Telescopic Topics is a production of the KU Physical Sciences Department and is recorded by the KU astronomy students in the studios of KUR. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
.23 right here on the Tyler Werner Show on Kutztown Radio. Finals week. No, not NBA or NHL finals or any of that, but final exam week at Kutztown University. And fortunately right now I don't have one, so that's why I'm here. Obviously I want to do the show and again, for those who didn't listen earlier, didn't hear earlier, we'll continue the Tyler Werner Show in a few weeks. At the end of the month, we'll have I'll have a few weeks off, and until the summer semester starts, and then we'll pick up with what the Eagles do in the draft. Obviously that's a big topic of discussion this week. Obviously, NFL draft week, and we'll go through some of the mock drafts and the ideas of what analysts and experts out there have, and in the first round, and I'll give you some of my spins on what they're predicting, and which player will go where, and where will Johnny Manziel go, and etc. Stuff like that. But before we get to that, first, again, I mean, it's also, I guess in a way, it's the Flyer. It's the week of the Flyers season is over, whatever you want to call it. As the New York Rangers, beat them in Game 7 to take, to essentially then take on Pittsburgh in the next round of the playoffs. Who would have been the Flyers' opponent had the Flyers moved on, essentially, and definitely would have been interesting because, the Flyers, seemingly dominated the Pittsburgh Penguins in the regular season this year. And they just seem to be in Pittsburgh's head no matter how many points or whatever the Flyers were behind Pittsburgh. It's just the way it normally goes. But it's, as far as the NHL playoffs goes and, the Flyers getting knocked out, there were definitely some disappointing fans and analysts, I'll say, after that Game 7. Game 6 last week, which was Tuesday night, the Flyers, had the best showing of the entire series, scoring 5 goals and in that game. And, I was criticizing them of how they couldn't really score more than 2 the entire series except for one game. And, they just, they floored me that night, and they essentially took it to a Game 7, which was then to happen the next night, last Wednesday at Madison Square Garden. And even though that they took it to a Game 7, and as strong as they looked, I wasn't too disappointed or surprised, maybe I could say, when they were knocked out in Game 7. Henrik Lundqvist obviously having a weak Game 6. A goaltender as good as him is not going to have that kind of bad game that often, and that's just the way it goes. I mean, some nights like that in the NHL, even the best goaltenders have bad nights. But in that Game 7, I mean, you want to talk about a guy who was kind of carrying the Flyers and keeping them alive. I mean, Steve Mason was playing lights out in that game. And, the Flyers, I mean, in the second period, they fell to a 2-0 lead in that Game 7. And, it was unfortunate, too. I mean, it was poor defense. It was, just the Rangers that, clearly looking dominant in that period and, looking like they were going to score and getting it by Steve Mason, doing all he could in that game. He was a highlight reel in he made a lot of incredible saves. And I mean, I guess, it might sound cliche, but the two goals weren't really his fault, that were scored on him in that game. And it's definitely a shame because, the third period, the Flyers came out, all guns a-blazing and really knocking on the door. They make it, they make it 2-1, but they just could not finish the job and tie the game. And, the Flyers fell 2-1 to the Rangers. But, as the analysts were saying after the game, it could have been a 7-0 game had it not been for Steve Mason really playing lights out in that Game 7. And, I guess if there's, some positives you can take from this season, it's that, the Flyers may now have a stable goaltending situation, which, in recent years has been definitely been an issue of concern. It does seem like, Steve Mason is a solid, top 10 goaltender in the NHL. Definitely really seemed to show in Game 7. And, I think we can, and Ray Emery is, he's a solid backup, I guess you could say. So, I mean, as far as the goaltending situation goes, I definitely think, definitely you go with, Steve Mason is kind of the guy next season, that we're he's kind of like Nick Foles in a way of the Flyers.
How's everyone doing?
Yeah, I mean, he's, Steve Mason had a good showing this year, and, go with him as the starting goaltender next season and, see if the decent play can continue. And again, I mean, I think he's a top 10 goaltender in the NHL. He's still fairly young, too. So, I mean, he could maybe even be a little better than that. And, had he maybe have had more defensive help at times and, I mean, the Flyers have, Kipo Timonen, who's, I believe, 39, going on 40. He's debating whether he's going to retire this season. They're paying Vinny Lecavalier $4.5 million a year, which, in the NHL, that's pretty high money. But, a lot of games he's playing less ice time than Zach Rinaldo, who's making much less. And, Scott Hartnell's, showing his age, who's also getting paid a lot. He's getting paid like Vinny Lecavalier money as well. And, he's starting to look like he's finished. And, as far as money goes, I mean, the way the Flyers have to pay guys, and Vinny Lecavalier, he has a no trade clause, and this is, he's got another 4 years on his deal, and it's definitely a bit troublesome as far as how the money is spent right now, and staying under the cap limit. I don't know. It does make it a little tough for the Flyers in some ways that they're binded to some of these guys who are making a lot of money, and makes it harder for them to make room for perhaps other talent that is maybe not past their prime. With all due respect, but that's that. The Flyers, Game 7 last week at Madison Square Gardens, losing, or Square Garden. I don't know why. I always want to. I'm not the only one, but a lot of people want to say gardens plurally for some reason. Madison Square Garden. And you know, speaking of Madison Square Garden and the Flyers losing last Wednesday to the New York Rangers, I wanted to share a little like personal anecdote here with the kind of like as an electronic media major, you know, some of the fun and funny and I guess ironic things that'll go on as an electronic media major, and I guess with me personally. Last week, you know, I have a video production class as an electronic media major, and you know, the final project that I had to do, you know, was last Wednesday when the Flyers went up to Madison Square Garden. Later that night, and they lost, but you know, we had this final project to do in video production. Now, essentially what it was like a, you know, kind of like a 7-minute show that we had to like organize a script for, and, you know, organize all the people for, you know, I was the director for this, essentially like this video shoot, and I actually want to get the file and, you know, just for fun, post it on the Facebook page sometime, so you know, you can see what I'm talking about. But you know, we had to do like this video shoot, and I like wrote out this idea about like a music show, to, you know, the rhythm section. Obviously this is fictional, but you know, the rhythm section that, you know, the bass player's missing a couple fingers, but he figures out how to play bass, or, you know, he figured out, and the drummer supposedly has prosthetic legs, and actually got a couple KUR personnel to fill in those talent spots, actually, and they did a pretty darn good job, and you know, I think you see that, and they look like it was like a real show almost as I'm watching the shoot of the show go on. But anyways, one of the things for this project that we had to do was organize an introduction video for the show, essentially, like a 30-second introduction video. And I was in the directing room or the control room or whatever. I was like directing, and you know, the show shoot starts. And for the video that I organized was like it was like a 30-second compilation of footage from, you know, Pink Floyd playing live back in the 70s, you know, Pearl Jam, but it starts off with a short clip from the Led Zeppelin concert film, The Song Remains the Same. And of course, well, not everybody out there might know that, but you know, the music experts out there might know that the concert footage for that was shot in Madison Square Garden, where you know, coincidentally that night is where the Flyers season would come to an end in Game 7. But the funny thing about this story is the person that was in charge on my crew of getting up that video was a girl who thought, as the video comes up, it starts off with, you know, Robert Plant, you know, frontman of Led Zeppelin, you know, kind of doing this, you know, one of his high-pitched, you know, screams, as, you know, I'm sure many of you are, you know, if you ever heard Led Zeppelin, would be familiar with. But she's watching the video as it's on the screen and as things are rolling here, and she said, and referring to me, she says, "Is that you in the video?" And
who is this?
And you know, I just, you know, and here the shoot is you know, underway here, and I just start laughing. I mean, it's just one of those things I didn't see coming, but it's not the first time I've been, you know, compared to Led Zeppelin, looking like Led Zeppelin frontman Robert Plant here. And, you know, if you see the picture on the Facebook page, you know, of me in the studio, you know, that's what I look like, in case you didn't know. But yeah, I mean, and coincidentally, I actually share Robert Plant's August 20th birthday too. So, you know, it's just one of those funny stories here in the electronic media major, that, you know, one of the funny things that'll go on, you know, me being mistaken for Robert Plant, you I guess in the heyday of Led Zeppelin, performing at Madison Square Garden, and back in the song remains the same shooting at Madison Square Garden, where essentially the Philadelphia Flyers season would come to an end later that night. Basically, that's what I'm trying to wrap up here with that whole story. I thought it was funny. The girl asked, thought that was me, and I just laughed and said no, and then the teacher kind of threw a jab and said he wishes that was him, and I don't know, but nevertheless, that's that. Now again, we'll get back to the serious business though here with the NFL draft, because before we hit to the next break, again, where do you want to see the Eagles go with this year's NFL draft? Now, would you mind seeing them trade up to maybe sacrifice a second round pick, or whatever kind of pick? Are you concerned about them having the quantity of draft picks, which may help out in the depth department, may give them more options for, the various positions of need that they could maybe perhaps fill? Or, would you mind seeing them trade up a couple picks or whatever, or, giving up a second round pick to get a guy that they really target, which to me is the quality end. Again, I don't know. I'm pretty open-minded on this, but I want to hear from listeners if there's somebody that they're really sold on, or somebody that they have their eyes set on, or a position of need that their heart is really set on to fill. Because, obviously, I said earlier, they fill, with the first pick specifically. That's what everyone's talking about. Do they draft a wide receiver? Do you want to see him go wide receiver, or do you want to see him go cornerback or free safety or nose tackle? Those seem to be the positions of need on the Eagles that many people speculate they're going to go for with that first pick. And personally, again, I said either way, I don't care which direction that as long as they seem to fill a position of need with that first pick, and throughout the rest of the draft, that's all I really care about. Again, I'm placing trust in them to do what they need to do for them to know what they're doing. They're evaluating the talent, to the umpteenth degree, I guess you could say, and really, we don't totally know exactly. What they see in this guy and that guy, and I think that's the bottom line. And but as long as they fill position of need, that's all I care for. Now, at the end of the, I might be a little, if somehow like Johnny Manziel slides down to 22, which actually some mock drafts out there do have that happening, and they take Johnny Manziel. I'm going to be a little skeptical of that. Considering that, the consensus is, Nick Foles is the guy at quarterback, and, but obviously it's not really a position of need now. And, if Nick Foles weren't to work out this season for what, if he really, drops down back to earth or something, next year you got a much deeper quarterback draft by the looks of it, and, they can always maybe address that need next year. But I think obviously now the consensus is, stick with Nick, I guess, as you could say, and that's what I have. But
how's everyone doing?
Again, I say as long as you fill a position of need, I think at the end of the day, that's all that matters, and we will address that coming up here in the third segment of the Tyler Werner Show today, on this nice May 6th afternoon. Right here at Kutztown University. 610-683-4859 is the number to get in. Or, of course, hit up the Facebook page while the show's still going today and post your thoughts there. It's the Tyler Werner Show, and it's right here on Kutztown Radio.
Did you know that 80% of KU students don't binge drink?
Hanging posters again? Do you think that poster is really true?
Yes, it is true. I am a KU health ambassador and familiar with the audit. KU students participate in alcohol screening each year. We use the Alcohol Use Disorder Identification Test. It is a simple way to screen and identify people who are at risk of developing alcohol problems. We have learned that the majority of students are taking care of business and focusing on academics.
You know, most of my friends don't drink, so I guess what this poster is saying is true.
Would you like to get a group of friends together for a bite to eat?
Sounds great. Text me later.
Kutztown Living, neighbor to neighbor.
Funded by the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board.
Carl Lewis for the Will Rogers Institute.
Eat all you want and lose weight. At some point, everybody wants to lose a few pounds, but claims like these are often just too good to be true. So be careful when choosing a diet. Before you start a weight loss plan, please talk to your doctor and do your homework.
For your free booklet, visit the Will Rogers Institute at wrinstitute.org or call toll-free 877-957-7575 and find us on Facebook and Twitter. The Will Rogers Institute, since 1936.
.1242 right here on the Tyler Werner Show. Right here live at Kutztown Radio. It's summer vacation essentially is right around the corner. And, it is finals week. And, that means that school's coming to an end. And, at least in my case, I have about a 3.5 month summer vacation, which for me will be a record, a personal record. My longest summer ever, and a lot of that, most of the summer we'll be doing the Tyler Werner Show here, noon to 1, usual time, throughout the majority of the summer. So we'll continue to talk Philadelphia sports here, and specifically right now, and coming up down the road after the few weeks off I'll have from KUR. We'll definitely be talking a lot about what the Eagles ultimately do with the draft this year. And, without further ado, we're going to start looking at some of the mock drafts here. Now, one of them I definitely want to go through is, a lot of reasons because, I don't even know really who the guy is. Bucky Brooks on the NFL Network. I obviously I've heard of him, but I guess he's just like more of a behind the scenes guy or something.
Who is that?
Because he's not the kind of guy you really catch on the NFL Network every day. So, but it's nice to look at fresh perspectives, I guess, is what I'm getting at here. So, he has defense, like many mock draft guys have them. Jadeveon Clowney, defensive end out of South Carolina, going to the Houston Texans with the first pick in the NFL draft. That's, to me, that's no surprise there. I would agree with that pick, obviously, for the Texans, and definitely a guy that would help out what is already a pretty decent defense, with J.J. Watt and, guys like that. So, yeah, I definitely see that happening. And then, a lot of guys have offensive tackle Greg Robinson going to the St. Louis Rams. I definitely think that's a possibility, in all likelihood. And, I don't know. They could also use some wide receiver help, too. I don't know, but Bucky Brooks has Greg Robinson going to the Rams with the second pick, as do many of the other mock draft guys. Now then, with the third pick, he has Johnny Manziel going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now this is where definitely there's some differences. I don't think the Jaguars are going to pick him. I actually think that Cleveland is going to take him with the next pick. Jacksonville, for whatever reason, they just don't. They don't get the big picks like that. Even though the big hype picks, I guess you could call them or whatever. But I see Cleveland actually taking him, and Jacksonville, I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll take Khalil Mack, an outside linebacker, for the defense. I don't know, but I think I see Cleveland taking Johnny Manziel actually, kind of like Brady Quinn, years ago when they took. I don't know, but plus, I mean, Cleveland. I mean, they have Josh Gordon. I mean, I don't know. They might see an interesting combination there with Johnny Manziel and. But I mean, the whole discussion about how Johnny Manziel is going to pan out in the NFL. That's a whole other discussion for another day, for me. And then the Oakland Raiders have picked number 5. Bucky Brooks here has them taking Blake Bortles, whose stock, I mean, to me, has kind of fallen. Along with Teddy Bridgewater, really, between the scouting combine and the pro day workouts and this and that, Blake Bortles going to the Raiders at pick 5. Maybe part of that has to do with Johnny Manziel already being taken off the board with this draft, this mock draft, and maybe the Raiders wanting a quarterback because if the Raiders don't take Blake Bortles, I mean, I could see Blake Bortles going later in the first round, maybe not even until the second round, really. But nevertheless, that's what Bucky Brooks has. 6th pick, which will be to the Atlanta Falcons, offensive tackle Jake Matthews. 7th pick, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Big name in this big pool of wide receivers. Mike Evans. Bucky Brooks has Sammy Watkins already off the board, so he has Mike Evans going to the Buccaneers. It's definitely a solid pick at number 7. And actually, a lot of their mock drafts here have Mike Evans going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with pick number 7. So, I guess maybe we shouldn't be surprised there if that actually does happen. But then again, I mean, it's the NFL draft. I mean, anything can happen. Then with pick number 8, which will be the Minnesota Vikings, he has Khalil Mack, outside linebacker, which, again, could go earlier. Maybe to the Jaguars, or I don't know. But, they have the Vikings getting a little deep defensive help, I guess you could say. The Buffalo Bills at pick number 9, Bucky Brooks has Eric Ebron, tight end, going to, and a lot, this is another pick that a lot of people have another position of need, I guess, that the people have the Bills taking. So, and then pick number 10 will be the Detroit Lions. Definitely a team that could use some defensive help. And, a lot of mock draft picks have Justin Gilbert, cornerback. Bucky Brooks has Derquise Denard, if that's how you say it. Another cornerback that, who knows, do the Eagles go for if he's still on the board? Bucky Brooks has him going to the Lions. The Titans, another team that might pick a cornerback on defense. Bucky Brooks has Justin Gilbert. Others maybe would say Kyle Fuller, cornerback out of Virginia Tech. The Giants, looking to, according to Bucky Brooks, maybe upgrade their defensive tackle position that, maybe did take a bit of a hit. And they lost a few guys this season. They have the Giants taking, or he has the Giants taking Aaron Donald out of Pittsburgh. The St. Louis Rams, taking one of the, most, either way, obviously the Rams had a pick, or have the second pick in the draft because of that trade with the Redskins that they, for RG3, where they got, a bunch of picks in multiple drafts, but nevertheless, the Rams then have another pick at 13, and some would say either Calvin Pryor, a free safety out of Louisville, or some people are saying like Bucky Brooks, Clinton Dix, free safety out of Alabama. You know, obviously an interesting name here.
Who is this?
That's people have him going to the Rams at 13. As maybe Calvin Pryor. Either way, a free safety is definitely possible there. And then I guess if the Rams take him, then they have Bucky Brooks has the Chicago Bears taking Calvin Pryor, free safety, which again could possibly be taken by the Rams according to a lot of mock drafts as well. So definitely an interesting spot there in the draft. And then the Steelers at pick 15, they have the Steelers taking a wide receiver, Odell Beckham, Bucky Brooks saying, and also like Charles Davis, they're saying Odell Beckham to the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 15, wide receiver. And then 16, you got the Dallas Cowboys up next on the board. Once again, Charles Davis and Bucky Brooks would agree that the Cowboys will take outside linebacker Anthony Barr from UCLA. Maybe trying to help out their defense, which, of course, definitely probably needs all the help in the world they can get. I agree. So they have them drafting an outside linebacker. And then 17, Bucky Brooks has the Baltimore Ravens taking offensive tackle Taylor Luong out of Michigan. Definitely, there's definitely a lot of difference of thoughts here as far as where the Ravens will go. Definitely, smoke screen for them at pick number 17 as far as what direction they go. The Jets, they have Bucky Brooks has the Jets taking Marquise Lee, wide receiver. Another, scooping up another one of those, wide receivers that the Eagles will perhaps, be interested in. A few picks later if they're still on the board. And then number 19, Bucky Brooks is Zach Martin, offensive tackle, going to the Dolphins. I don't know what you think of that pick. I mean, I guess it's possible. I haven't looked into the Dolphins really that much and their needs, but nevertheless, that's what he has for them. And then the Cardinals, he has at number 20 taking D Ford, defensive end out of Auburn. Some might say they take Blake Bortles if Blake Bortles slides down to number 20. And Carson Palmer getting up there in age. I mean, I don't know. That could be a good pick for them. Building towards the future. If they were to take Blake Bortles, if he's still around, I don't know how he'll pan out in the NFL. But that's that. And then 21, the last pick before the Eagles are up, the Green Bay Packers. He has inside linebacker C.J. Mosley to the going to the Green Bay Packers. So that brings us to his number 22 pick for the Philadelphia Eagles, and he has cornerback Kyle Fuller going to the Philadelphia Eagles with the number 22 pick in the NFL draft. Okay, so that's that. Look at the other mock draft guys here and see what they say. Cornerback Darqueze Dennard, which Bucky Brooks had him going earlier in the draft to the Lions, but some would say that maybe he'll go to the Eagles, and then some say that free safety Clinton Dix will go to the Eagles at number 22, and then Lewis Nix, nose tackle Charlie Casserly, has him going to the Eagles at number 22 on this mock draft board here. That nobody here yet has said a wide receiver, which I find interesting. But let's scroll over here and go to Brian Baldinger, former kind of like an Eagle alumni, I guess you could say. He has wide receiver Kelvin Benjamin out of Florida State going to the Philadelphia Eagles. So there you go. That now you get to the other side of the board here, and there's guys that think that they will go wide receiver and maybe not defense. You got Mike Hugannon. This is
Who
this is another mystery guy to me, but he has the Eagles also taking a wide receiver. They have Odell Beckham going number 22 to the Eagles. And again, I mean, a lot of this is going to depend on what happens before them, too. I mean, if Odell Beckham's a guy that they really have their eyes set on, then and he's still on the board, then they will take him. If he's off the board and maybe they don't like Kelvin Benjamin so much, maybe they'll go cornerback. I don't know. It's definitely an interesting and complex draft here this year. It's not, last year's draft was kind of, I don't know, it was just kind of, it wasn't as interesting, I guess. And then there's the whole element of, what if Johnny Manziel does slide and he is available at pick 22? I mean, do the Eagles take him? And so it's definitely going to be an interesting first round of the draft here and this season. And yeah, the second pick as well. We'll see what they do with that. But yeah, I mean, we're running to the end of the line here with the show. So, again, I mean, a few weeks we'll be back to talk about it as I'll be off the next few weeks as the summer semester will begin late in May after Memorial Day weekend. And, so that'll be, I mean, after Memorial Day weekend, we'll start talking about, obviously, what the Eagles essentially did with the draft, talk about the thoughts and feelings going around the board with, Eagle fans and what they think of what the Eagles did in the draft. And, that time, I mean, we'll be deeper into the NBA playoffs, which, again, I mean, is quite an interesting first round, which we don't have time to talk about today, but in a few weeks, I mean, it'll be down to the wire, and I guess we might be getting almost underway with the NBA finals as well as the NHL finals, which is the NHL playoffs have been interesting as well. Just for interest right now, I mean, the Pittsburgh Penguins are up 2-1 over the Rangers right now. We'll see how that turns out. But, again, I mean, also throughout the summer, we'll see how the Phillies stand. I mean, if they're still around 500 or, maybe maybe guys start getting banged up, some older players, I don't know. We'll see how that starts to pan out. But obviously, again, we'll address the Philadelphia Flyers in the offseason, see what they can do to improve their team as we head into next season, which will, be year two, I guess you could say, of the new regime with Craig Berube as the head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers. So, for now, until a few weeks from now, stay tuned on the Facebook page for, whatever comes up. And we'll talk to you on the Tyler Werner Show right here in 3 weeks.